So after the Tang Dynasty, China split into smaller kingdoms again, and kind of like the second age of disunion. And after that, some local regimes managed to reunify the major part of China proper, such as the Song Dynasty, and others remained a local regime throughout the 10th century to the 13th century. So during this age of disunion, a clearly kind of local tradition in architecture developed. Even in the official style, those major architecture sponsored by the rulers, from those we can notice a clear kind of regional difference. So this is the period when China was primarily split into a northern and a southern half. So after the fall of the Tang Empire, first, China split into about a dozen local regimes. Each provincial level administration declared themselves as an independent kingdom in the 10th century, and eventually a general from a kingdom with the capital in the Yellow River area unified the major part of the Chinese heartland. Not all of them, but the majority of them. That is the green area on the map, on the left map. That is the Song Dynasty. It kind of established in 960 and unified this territory around 990s. Its capital is in the Yellow River area, a city today known as Kaifeng, but back then it was known as the Bianliang, or the Eastern Capital. So that is a city we are going to look at in some detail. While the earlier local regimes remained independent, such as in southwest part of China, there's a local regime called Dali. It remained an independent kingdom until the universal conquest of the Mongols. While in the north, to the north of the Song Empire was the Liao Empire. So that kind of huge territory, it's called the Liao Empire. The Liao Empire controlled important cities, including today's Beijing, that was under the Liao territory. And in the northwestern part, there's the a kingdom known as Xixia. So we are not going to look at that regime in much detail. In terms of the development of northern and southern tradition, the three empires of Song, Liao, and Jin played a major role, right? It's the north-south division. While in the 10th century to 12th century, the border is around the Beijing area. In the 12th century, that border was pushed down to just to the north of the Yangtze River. Basically, in the early 12th century, another nomadic power rose in northeastern part of China, and that people was known as the Georgians. They founded the Jin dynasty, founded in 1115. And then in 1125, it conquered the Liao. So and after it conquered Liao, it didn't stop. It invaded the Song and pushed the court of the Song Empire all the way to the Yangtze River area, to this area. The capital of the Song dynasty moved from Bianliang to Hangzhou. And so the Yellow River was lost to the Jin Empire. All right, so on the map on the right, in the north is the Jin Empire. The Jin Empire controlled not only the Beijing area, which is here, but also the Yellow River. And the Song capital moved to Hangzhou, which was known as Lin'an back then. So throughout the 10th century to the 13th century, China was divided into a northern and southern empires. In the south, it was the Song Empire. In the north, it was first the Liao Empire and then the Jin Empire. To differentiate the earlier period of the Song dynasty and the later period of the Song dynasty, we call them Northern Song and Southern Song, right? Northern Song because their capital is located in the north, so which is here, Kaifeng. And while the capital for the Song Empire from 1127 to 1279 is located in the south, so we call that period the Southern Song, and that regime, the Southern Song Empire. So Northern Song and Southern Song, in other words, is a contemporary term, while in the 12th century, the Song people didn't refer to their dynasty that way. They simply consider them as the same country, same continuous regime, Song dynasty. It is just for the convenience of historians in historical discussion, we give them name Northern Song and Southern Song to differentiate the earlier and the later period of the same empire, whose territories were different. So, and then the northwestern regime of Xixia and the southwestern regime of Dali was a contemporary to the Song Empire. So like the Song Empire, these two local regimes did not experience dynastic change as the Liao and the Jin case. So this kind of long period, 3 centuries of split into a northern and a southern half helped to formulate the different official style in architecture, and eventually later the kind of became known as the Northern style and Southern style Chinese architecture. That architectural difference can first be observed in terms of monastery plan in Buddhist architecture. In general, the Song Buddhist architecture, the southern regime, tended to kind of innovate new forms and new layouts, while the Liao territory to the north tended to maintain the previous kind of Tang tradition, and to run the risk of too much simplification, we might say that the Liao monastery plan is more kind of conservative, while the Song monastery plan tended to be more forward-looking and didn't hesitate to adopt a new form and make changes. For example, on the left is the Fogongsi Monastery from the 11th century, and it is built in the Liao territory in Shanxi province, from the Yin County, somewhere there, in the Liao territory. It had a monastery plan that is clearly pagoda-centered. We know the pagoda-centered monastery plan was associated with the earlier form of Buddhist worship, that is the relics-centered worship. While on the right, we have the Kanyuansi. Kanyuansi, although it was founded much earlier than the Fogongsi, however, the later reconstruction of the monastery adopt newer layout. The two pagodas, for example, was added in the Song dynasty, also in the 11th century. However, they were added in a way not located in the center of the monastery. A pair of pagodas were constructed, framing the central axis on which the image hall for the worship of Buddhist statues are located, while the Fogongsi on the Liao territory. So Kanyuansi is in the city of Quanzhou, which is in the southeastern Fujian province, right? So we have pagoda-centered monastery plan adopted by the Liao regime, and the image hall-centered monastery plan adopted by the Song regime in the south. So show the image of this kind of pagoda-centered monastery plan in the upper right picture. We are looking at the monastery from this angle, looking at the gate, and the huge tower, which is a pagoda, loom in the background. And the lower right picture, we are looking from the back. So this is the image hall, the Buddha hall. And in both cases, no matter which direction you are looking at the monastery, the dominating building is the pagoda, right? Very, very powerful statement about the focus on the relics of Buddha. While in the Kaiyuan from the Song territory, the pagodas are on the sides, not belonging to the central group of buildings. In the central group, it is the gate, the main Buddha hall for the worship of Buddhist images, including statues, and then in the back is the lecture hall. That is the central group. Well, to look at those pagodas, you must go to their specific courtyards, and you certainly don't see them together very easily because there is not a large enough distance for you to see both the pagodas and the gates and the central buildings. So Buddhist statue became the center, of the worship. So this is the statue. And the current wooden building was reconstructed in the Ming Dynasty, right? So Pagoda-Centered Monastery plan in the Liao territory and the Image Hall-Centered Monastery plan in the Song territory. So that is the first kind of noticeable difference in terms of Buddhist architecture during this division into North and South from this period. So even for those monastery whose pagodas are, not all monastery have monumental pagodas. Some of them just have smaller ones to honor the great masters instead of having a actual relics of Buddha. In that case, very often there isn't a monumental pagoda at all for the monastery, just many smaller ones in the kind of cemetery area of the monastery. In that case, the tall building, the building featuring verticality, are also located differently in Liao versus in Song. In the Liao territory, the tall building tended to be centrally located, while in the Song territory, they tended to be located in the back. That's another kind of difference in their monastery plan. So we are looking at a pair of examples from the Liao territory. We have the Dule Si Monastery, which is here. That's the Liao Dule Si on the left. On the Song territory, we have the Longxing Si, and on the right. And the Longxing Si is actually not very far from there. It's somewhere here in Hebei province, today's Hebei province. And the border between Song and the Liao is right there. All right, to the north is the Liao dynasty. To the south is the Northern Song Empire. So in both monasteries, these two monasteries, none of them have monumental pagoda. So probably they didn't own true relics of Buddha. But they both have a vertical kind of a tall tower whose type is known as Ge. Ge means, well, towered pavilion. It's a pavilion, it's a singular individual building, but it's multi-story, right? So that Ge pavilion existed in both monasteries, and in both cases, the Ge was constructed to shelter a standing statue of a bodhisattva known as Guanyin, the bodhisattva of compassion. In Dule Si, that Ge is located right behind the gate, right? So this is the gate, and that is the Ge, the Guanyin Pavilion. And behind it, there is an image hall. So it's located in the center, on the central axis. While at Longxing Si, that Ge building is here. And the gate is way down to the south. So you have to pass through a series of halls, including the image hall, including the sutra hall, including those framing structures, and reach the back where you find the tall pavilion. We will come back to this monastery to look at the whole building, individual structure, but now we just focus on the plan. So this is the gate. This is the gate, and we are looking through the gate actually from that direction, looking this way, looking at the Guanyin Pavilion, which is right behind the south gate. A tall building, and sheltering a standing bodhisattva inside. So that is located in the center in the Dule Si case. While at Longxing Si, in the Song territory, that Guanyin Pavilion is located all the way to the back. It also kind of have a traditional Chinese architectural element. We have seen this in the mosque in last lecture as well. A freestanding wall just opposite the main gate. That is the screen wall, 影壁 or 照壁. So which is a typical residential architectural element adopted in mosque, in Buddhist monastery, in the Yellow River area as well. So that one, you need to pass, that image hall no longer existed. Today, only the platform existed. The building had been destroyed. But after that is this building, a lower building, the Sutra Hall, known as the Moni Hall. That is basically shelters a huge structure with Buddhist scrolls inside. And passing through those symmetrical buildings framing the central courtyard, central axis, and these are the framing structures on either side of the central axis. Passing through that, eventually one reached to the tallest building, that is the Ge, the Guanyin Pavilion, also known as the Dabei Pavilion, the Pavilion of Great Compassion, because Bodhisattva Guanyin was the goddess of compassion in Chinese Buddhism. So it's kind of the tall vertical building located in the very back of the complex. Now that is in kind of a monastery plan. Let's take a look at individual structure and see what we can say about the regional difference between the north and the south. This is the Shanhua Monastery. The Shanhua Monastery in the city of Datong in Shanxi province. It also belonged to the Liao Empire from the 10th century to the 12th century, and belonged to the Jin Empire from the 12th century to the 13th century. So it was built by the northern regime throughout this period of disunion, the second period of disunion, not in the Song territory. Along the central axis, we have the buildings of the gate, the image hall dedicated to the Buddhist guardians, and then the image hall dedicated to Buddhas. So those are the main buildings along the central axis. This is the main hall dedicated to Buddha, right? It features a huge platform in front of it and a pair of smaller pavilions framing the central axis, the stair leading to that platform, and the main entrance facing south, right? The architecture is very closed. It has kind of solid wall, and with windows and gates opened in smaller scale, not throughout the whole facade, right? Only 3 bays were opened for access, right? So here, here, and here, right? So it's a 7-bay building. The central bay and 2 side bays are opened, but the rest of 4 bays are sealed up with solid wall, brick wall. So it has a, it features an image of solidarity, an image of kind of closed up, not very open, and that is a general kind of characteristic of northern style eventually developed since the Song, Liao, and Jin period. It's the curve along the eave in general is very gentle, right? The corner just slightly turned up, but push away from the wall pretty far. And like the wall, the roof also present an image of solidarity and a solemnness, kind of a, expressed in its simplicity and subtlety of the curve. We will see the difference more clearly when we compare it with a similar building from the Song territory. And this is the Shanhua Monastery the front image hall. It presents the similar kind of a preference for sealing up the space. For example, in this building, the only bay that opened as entrance is the central one, the central bay. While on the side, they are opened only as windows, featuring those thick and solid walls. And we can observe a similar kind of gentle, slight curve on the eave, but far-reaching eave lines pushed from the wall. So such a preference might have less to do with the preference of a style than the condition of the climate. Because in North China, the winter is much colder. So this kind of a closed up preference obviously could maintain a better interior temperature. While in the south, in the Song territory, where the climate is in general much warmer, buildings can afford to be more open. Actually, to open up the building is preferred because of the humidity. Opening up the space would allow better air ventilation. In the southern kind of a warm and humid climate, pavilions located on the side. And this comparison, I think this is what I was meant to highlight in this lecture. So we find those in terms of planning, there was a differentiation between North and South. There's also a kind of individual stylistic preference in terms of Northern and Southern architecture, right? So that's the former image we looked at, the Shanhua Si main Buddha Hall from the Liao territory, right? Very closed. From outside, you see thick wall, solid wall. While on the right is the same building of the same function, the main Buddha Hall. And in both cases, they are called 大雄宝殿. 大雄宝殿 is the Buddha Hall dedicated to Shakyamuni Buddha, the founder of Buddhism. So Shanhua Si is located somewhere here, and this is the Baoguo Si, Baoguo Si from the Song territory. That is from here, from Yuyao, from the south. So from the Baoguo Si main Buddha Hall, we can see that the lower part of the building is much more open, right? It features a corridor that one can enjoy the breeze and the cool air in the hot and humid summer. And all the doors in the 3 bays along the southern facade can be opened for better ventilation. While for Shanhua Si, there's an emphasis on the solid walls. So that's clearly a difference as a result of the weather and climate. And secondly, in terms of the roof, the southern building from the Song territory tended to raise the eave much higher than necessary, right? While the gentle curve from Shanhua Si still maintain the horizontality of the eave line, the southern building from the Song territory point clearly upward, have that kind of upturning eave line. And as a result, the image of the roof seems more lively, not as heavy, just like the structure underneath that features openness rather than the solemn solidarity. So this would become the trademark. Like when in general people talk about northern style Chinese architecture and southern style Chinese architecture, that's the main character. Northern architecture tended to be heavy, more simplistic, highlight solidarity, and space more closed up, small windows, while southern style tended to be more curved, more lively, lighter, and more open. So that is, the general differentiation between northern and southern style Chinese architecture. And both of them are, we are not talking about vernacular. We are not talking about vernacular residence. We are talking about official style, right? Official style. There is a kind of general difference. And that difference has much to do with the north and south split from this period, from the 10th century to 13th century, when China was divided into a Liao and a Jin in the north and the Song in the south. So they kind of contributed to the formulation of an official northern and southern style in architecture. So we can also observe that in pagoda, that in that individual difference. For example, on the left is our old friend, the Fogongsi pagoda. We looked at it as an example of pagoda-centered monastery plan. And on the right is the Baoensi pagoda in Suzhou, which is also somewhere here from the Yangtze River, Suzhou, and Fogongsi is here. Both are pagodas, both are also tower pavilion pagodas, all right, low Geshita. But, the northern and southern difference can be clearly observed in the eave line, right? That gentle curve and horizontality in the northern style, kind of an exaggerated curve and upturning eaves from the southern pagodas. And in general, a sense of heaviness and closed up, and a sense of liveliness and opening, and open can also be observed in this pair. Okay. All right, I'm not sure why I cannot find the place to stop recording, but I think it's here. Stop recording.